Why does 1 Chronicles 23 contain another genealogical list of the Levites? This is a question we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of 1 Chronicles on walking through the Bible. Today we're going to be discussing 1 Chronicles chapter 23, verses 1 to 20. But before we do that, let's read the passage. If you have a Bible with you, you can turn to 1 Chronicles chapter 23, verse 1. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry, just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So 1 Chronicles chapter 23, beginning of verse 1. So when David was old and full of days, he made his son Solomon king over Israel. And he gathered together all the leaders of Israel with the priests and the Levites. Now the Levites were numbered from the age of 30 years and above, and the number of the individual males was 38,000. Of those, 24,000 were to look after the work of the house of the Lord. 6,000 were officers and judges. 4,000 were gatekeepers. And 4,000 praised the Lord with musical instruments, which I made, said David, for giving praise. Also David separated them into divisions among the sons of Levi, Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. Of the Gershonites, Laaddan and Shimei. The sons of Laaddan, the first Jeliel, then Zetham and Joel, 3 in all. The sons of Shimei, Shelomith, Haziel, and Haran, 3 in all. These were the heads of the fathers' houses of Laaddan. And the sons of Shimei, Jahath, Zinnah, Jeush, and Beriah. These were the 4 sons of Shimei. Jahath was the first, and Zizzah the second. But Jeush and Beriah did not have many sons, therefore they were assigned as one father's house. The sons of Kohath, Amram, Izhar, Hebron, and Uzziel, 4 in all. The sons of Amram, Aaron, and Moses. And Aaron was set apart, he and his sons forever, that he should sanctify the most holy things, to burn incense before the Lord, to minister to him, and to give the blessing in his name forever. Now the sons of Moses, the man of God, were reckoned to the tribe of Levi. The sons of Moses were Gershon and Eliezer. Of the sons of Gershon, Shubal was the first. Of the descendants of Eliezer, Rehabiah was the first, and Eliezer had no other sons, but the sons of Rehabiah were very many. Of the sons of Izhar, Shelomith was the first. Of the sons of Hebron, Jeriah was the first, Amariah the second, Jahaziel the third, and Jekameam the fourth. Of the sons of Uzziel, Micah was the first, and Jeshahiah the second. In this section of 1 Chronicles, attention is now turned to the establishment and organization of the worship in Israel, something the chronicler tells us happened in the latter days of the reign of King David. Back in Exodus through Deuteronomy, God established what he expected for worship. He gave Israel the tabernacle and all that was in it. He told them what sacrifices to offer, when to offer them, and how to offer them. He told them who would be priests and what those duties would entail. He gave them feasts to observe as well as other laws. You might say that God was very detailed. The Levites were selected to serve the Lord in the tabernacle, though it would be of the house of Aaron who would serve as priests. In David's day and thereafter, something was going to change. You see, up until this time, the tabernacle had the ability to move. From the days of Joshua to Eli, a period of about 300 years, the tabernacle had been situated in Shiloh, but it did have the ability to move since it was a tented structure. And for the past 100 years, it had been moving around to different places, such as Nob outside Jerusalem, to where it was in David's day, which was at Gibeon. And although the tabernacle wasn't really small, it wasn't overly large either. Only a set number of priests were needed at a time, and the non-priestly Levites were only needed to move the tabernacle or to perform other duties as was needed. With the soon-to-be-built temple structure, though, more was going to be needed. First of all, the temple itself and the temple grounds would be bigger, thus requiring more people to attend to it. The altar of burnt offering, we're going to later find out, was 4 times bigger than the one in the tabernacle, meaning more priests were going to be needed to attend to it. You're now going to need gatekeepers and musicians at this temple, things not seemingly present, or in high numbers at least, in the tabernacle. And then, of course, as a united nation, officers and judges for the nation would need to be appointed, and the Levites played a role in that as well. We have seen judges in the past in Israel, and all of them were not Levites. However, implied in Deuteronomy was that the Levites would play the role of judge as it concerned the explanation and application of the law of Moses. The high priest was often consulted for judgments of God, and other priests have served that function in a lesser role. In the time of David, he was the judge of the people as a whole, but he could not judge every case. He would have lower judges who would judge smaller matters. What we have here in 1 Chronicles is making explicit what had been implicit before. The Levites would be the main judges in the cities of Israel, since Israel was a theocracy under the rule of God. In total, there were 38,000 Levites above the age of 30, with the age of 30 being the age when a Levite began his service to the Lord according to Numbers 4 verse 3. Of those, 24,000 looked after the work in the house of the Lord, 6,000 were officers and judges, 4,000 were gatekeepers, and 4,000 were musicians who played instruments in worship to God. That we know the number of the Levites necessitated that a census be taken of the Levites. Recall from chapter 21 that in the census that David called for, that Joab didn't number the Levites. He did this likely to preserve the Levites in case God destroyed Israel because of the census, but would spare the Levites who were not counted. Regardless of the reason, the fact that the Levites were counted now shows us that the counting of the people was not the issue, but the reason behind the counting, which was David's arrogance. Now, though, the actual numbers of Levites was required, for if the temple work was to be organized, one had to know how many people were qualified for temple work so that different shifts could be organized. And this is the reason that we're going to get a list of names over the next few chapters. The different families of the Levites would have specific responsibilities, and so for the returning captives in Ezra and Nehemiah's day, knowing which family in Levi you were from would help determine what your role in the temple would be. Remember, there were three main families of Levites: Gershonites, Kohathites, and Merarites. From within the Kohathites, there was also one special family, the house of Aaron, for from him would come the priests. Thus, all priests were Levites, but not all Levites were priests. When discussing the Levites, then, usually we discuss them with four distinct families instead of three, with the priests being that fourth family. Within each of the four families, you would also have subdivisions, which again would also relate to different functions in the temple. For us today, remembering all the details of these families and the names that belong to them is not important, for we don't have a Levitical priesthood today. But for Israel, it was important. For us, let's simply remember which family the priests were from, the house of Aaron, that there were three other families of Levites, Gershonites, Kohathites, where the family of Moses would be numbered from, and Merarites. Each of these families will have specific duties in the temple, some of which will be outlined in future lessons. And for all you skeptics out there, yes, there might be different spellings of names than in other places in Scripture, but we've dealt with this numerous times in Chronicles already, as names can have different spellings at different times in history, and there can be later scribal errors that we must recognize exist. But this doesn't shake my faith in the original inspiration of Scripture, for the Hebrews knew what was originally written and could obey God from it, after which he was pleased. Today, God has given us his word. By the sheer number of manuscripts that we have, we can know that what we have was what was originally written. And because of that, we can know how to obey God and obey him fully. If you have any questions about doing so, please leave a comment in the comment section below, and we'll gladly answer any questions about the scriptures you might have. We'll continue on with the divisions of the Levites, the Lord willing, in the next lesson. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of 1 Chronicles chapter 23, verses 21 to 32, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.